All right, John, welcome. Thank you. I know you have been a busy man with all of the content you guys are pushing out. So thank you for coming on board and chatting with me today about all this loan stuff. For those of you who do not know John Briggs, he's amazing. He's been our accountant for 4 years now, I think. Founder of Incite Tax, and wrote a book actually on Profit First for micro gyms. John, you are such a plethora of knowledge, so thank you so much for coming on board. Why don't you share a little bit about yourself for those people that don't know you?
Sure. So I'm an accounting firm, Incite Tax. We have roughly 16 team members, and we look to help gym owners. It's no surprise that many gym owners work a heroic amount of hours despite living paycheck to paycheck. And so we have a system that helps them be at home for dinner time, and that also allows their gym to thrive. And that's kind of our focus. Not to mention, we think the IRS stinks, and so anyone we can protect against them, we always try to do that too.
Oh my gosh. Well, you are a gym owner now too, so welcome to the gym owning world as well.
Yeah, thanks.
I don't think anyone can, you understand what gym owners do, and you get it. So thank you for all that you do and all that you're doing right now to help gym owners, because it's a little scary right now. We all shut our doors essentially, hoping that our members would stick with us as we turned into a virtual platform overnight. And I think the biggest questions I'm seeing right now are about loans and how are we getting revenue, like all this financial assistance that's available. Can you describe, and we will definitely put some additional links of all the resources that you have available in the chat, but John, can you describe what two main loans are available? I mean, you hear EIBL and then you hear the PPP. Like, what's the difference between the two?
Well, one of them is when your child has to go to the bathroom.
Okay.
I'm just kidding. So let's talk about the two. This is the most recent information we have as of today, and I'm sure I'll get into some of the differences of stuff that's changed. But the first one let's talk about is called the Economic Injury Disaster Loan. We're going to call those EIDLs. These are the loans that have existed for a few weeks now, longer than the other loans, the Paycheck Protection Program loans. You apply directly to the SBA website for the EIDL. And so that's an SBA.gov URL. And I say that just because I have heard there is a scam out there and they're using a .com. So it looks very much like it's the right website, but it's a .com. It's an SBA.gov URL. And you can get up to $2 million loan. It's a 3.75% interest rate, up to 30 years. This is also the loan that people are talking about with the $10,000 of free money. So when you apply for this loan, it's actually a very simple application. Even my clients who have told me they don't consider themselves number people, it's taking them about less than 15 minutes to fill out. Very simple. It doesn't ask for a lot of information. The most complicated information they're going to ask for is your gross revenue from last year.
Hopefully we know that.
And your cost of goods sold.
Okay.
They don't ask for other expenses. And just for most fitness businesses, the cost of goods sold is only going to be physical things that you sell. So supplements, apparel. It doesn't include merchant processing fees. It doesn't include if you pay coaches and you book it under that. That's not the cost of goods sold they're asking for.
For the people that are watching this, we've got a couple hundred people on right now. Have you guys applied for this loan yet? Yes or no? Answer in the chat. Have you guys applied for this loan? And type in the questions that you have regarding this loan. So we're going to SBA.gov, not .com, because that's a scam. And we are applying for up to $2 million worth of money. And the process is much faster than a normal SBA loan, correct?
That's the rumor. That's their promise. So let me just say, too, when you fill out the application, it doesn't actually ask you how much you want to borrow. I'm guessing they're basing it off of your revenue. I'm not entirely sure yet because I haven't personally spoken to someone who's gotten one of these yet.
Okay.
At the end of the application, though, there is a box that says, would you like a $10,000 advance? I recommend checking that box, putting in your bank info, just in case. When you do that, it's going to give you a confirmation number. You want to make sure you write that confirmation number down because they don't email you, and then there's not really a place for you to check afterwards for the status of where you're at.
Okay, so write down the confirmation number. Dustin just commented saying, we're looking for a new accountant. My accountant told me that he would file it for a $200 fee. So as John's saying, it's pretty easy to do. I would recommend doing it yourself for 15 minutes. I'm sure that's worth $200. And write down the confirmation, correct? Anything else that we need to kind of know?
No, that's fair. I mean, we actually, for this loan, we also, if someone actually wanted us to apply for it, $200 is a pretty reasonable fee if you have to pay someone to do it because their time isn't for free. They're trying to stay in business as well. I do know other professionals that are charging the thousands. That to me is ludicrous, but you are better off. You don't need someone like me to fill this application out for you. It is that simple. I'm telling you, those two numbers are the only financial numbers they ask for. That's it. You can use the EIDL for business expenses. You could technically use it for payroll. I'll get into that when I talk about the other loans. But as far as us being told it's supposed to be processed faster than normal SBA loans, but it's certainly not happening as fast as they're saying it can happen. And even what I've heard other accountants say, yeah, you apply and then within 7 days you'll hear something. Well, I'm going on day 12. Haven't heard anything at all. I do have my confirmation number though. So this is I would look at the economic injury disaster loan as actually a long-term help, not a short-term, because of how long it seems to be taking these people to process this.
Okay, so long-term plan, have this loan where you get the $10,000 grant, then you have some extra money that you can use towards expenses. Anything else we need to know about that loan before we move to the other one? And then I want to answer all of the questions that you guys have. So as you are watching this, please type in the questions in the chat so that we can help you. This is live for you. John, anything else you can think of with the EIBL loan?
Nothing. I mean, I think other things that will come up and make more sense after we talk about the other loan.
Okay, let's talk about it. So PPP. This one's a little more in depth.
Yeah, so it's called the Paycheck Protection Program loan, and I'm going to call it Triple P just because I have 4 kids, and if I say PPP that often, they're going to listen to me. And anyways, it's not good. So if we look at the name of the loan itself, that helps us understand the intent of the government. Paycheck protection. So the loan, the Triple P loans, are primarily given for payroll, and the amount of money you can borrow is completely based on your payroll. This is your W-2 amount. The amount you pay in W-2, that's your payroll. They're not taking 1099s. I have heard of some banks allowing you to include the 1099 amount in your calculation for how much you can borrow, but the new regulations, or I should say the further guidance that the banks and SBA came out with after the law was signed, it's like a 30-page document if you haven't seen it yet. It specifically says you will not get loan forgiveness if you use the proceeds to pay a 1099 coach. And the reason is because your 1099 team members can and should apply themselves. So they're just looking to protect the paychecks. Now, I've heard verbally from the SBA that they're not counting owner distributions in that payroll amount, but I do know of at least one person who used that number in his payroll calculation, and his bank said he was approved. So at this point, the way I look at it is the government came in and created the board game for us, and then the banks came in and they're writing the rules for this game. Because it seems like every bank is going to be a little bit different, and the smaller banks or credit unions who are offering these loans might be offering a little bit more flexibility. Because at the end of the day, the bank is the one that decides how much of the loan gets forgiven or not. They're basically the administrator of this for the SBA. I'm a Chase Bank customer, and I know they flat out told me owner distribution is not included, and 1099 is not included even in my monthly payroll amount. So the bigger banks seem to be a lot stricter on it. So how much can you actually borrow? They ask you to figure out your average payroll expense. If you were in business last year, your average payroll expense is going to be your payroll from last year, or if the bank allows you, your last rolling 12 months. Whatever that amount is, divided by 12, that's your average number. You can take 2.5 times your average payroll amount, and that's the max amount you can request for the loan. Once you get the loan, you now have an 8-week period to spend it on the items that will allow it to be forgiven. Those items are payroll, mortgage interest or rent, and utilities. They also came out in this 30-page document, which is the most recent one that I've seen, and said due to the high demand that they're going to be getting, you are only able to use 25% of your loan on mortgage interest, rent, or utilities in order for it to be forgiven. The other 75% has to be used on payroll.
So essentially you need to pay your people within 8 weeks if you want this to be forgiven.
It has to be used in the 8 weeks. If you don't, they're going to look for documentation from you to sustain and support that you used it for those purposes. So that's not to say, look, I've spoken to some people and all their staff is 1099, but they're hurting and they have to make rent.
Yeah.
So they're still looking at this like, well, I can get the loan and at least 25% of this is going to be forgiven.
Yeah.
Because you can use 100% of it on rent.
Yeah.
It's just that only 25% of it's going to be forgiven.
Got it.
With that said, though, we have to understand the PPP loans. It's a 2-year term at a 1% interest rate. And that sounds awesome.
Yeah.
It's like a 1% interest rate is phenomenal. But a 2-year term, your monthly payments to pay that back are going to be pretty high. So if you are getting the funds and not using it on something that can be forgiven, I hope that you guys are planning for that additional cash outflow for the next 2 years, so that you don't get in a scenario where you borrow the money and now you can't even pay it back. Because that would be worse, I think, than the scenario as bad as it is what we're currently facing.
Okay, got it. So I think those are important pieces of the puzzle that we need to remember, right? Because if you're just spending it all on rent and not having a way to regenerate that money so that you can pay it back in an appropriate time, you're going to find yourself in a pickle. Z said same thing with Bank of America, and I'm pretty sure she was talking about owner distribution and not paying 1099s. So think about that, guys. I know not all gyms pay their coaches as a W-2 employee. So if you can't pay your 1099 coaches or write that off, then yeah, you want to definitely think about that. What are some of the main questions that you're getting asked about the PPP loan? Or what kind of questions for you guys watching? What kind of questions do you have? Put those in the chat for us so that we can help you.
Yeah, the most common one is with the confusion on 1099. Look, and I get it. Some people have been mad at me when I have given them the answer. The law clearly says independent contractor should be considered and included. I get it. And the banks came in and kind of pulled a hissy fit like a little brat and said, 5% to pay us 5% to take these loans on isn't enough for us. I mean, thanks for bailing us out in 2008, but and the fact that if someone defaults, you're going to give us the money back anyway, so we don't have any risk as a bank. Yeah, we don't want it. We don't think we should include 1099 contractors. I don't have any sort of concrete evidence that I can provide to you, just based on how my understanding dealing with this stuff for the last decade plus. That's what happened. So I am sorry. I know what the law says. We just have to play the game by the rules. 1099 contractors, even if you can use it to get the loan amount, if you pay your contractors out of that money, it is not going to be forgiven. I'm confident in that. And then you're again stuck in this scenario where you got to pay back a chunk of money over the next 2 years. And because, again, like, even if you took out $24,000 over 2 years, none of that's forgiven. That's $2,000 a month that you have to come out of pocket. Like 1% interest rate, yeah, it's free money, but you still got to pay back the principal. One of the things that we are recommending, because it seems like at least the bigger banks for sure have stopped taking applications or have slowed it down just because they haven't been able to process everything that's been submitted so far. We're recommending you apply to as many banks as possible to give yourself the best chance of getting one of these, assuming you plan on using it for a reason that allows it to be forgiven. You are allowed to do that. There's nothing wrong with that. The second you get a loan approved and you sign the paperwork, then if you get approved by another bank, you'd obviously tell them you're declining it. You can't take more than one of these loans, but you can certainly apply to other places. And that reminds me, I wanted to come back to this. The law says you're not allowed to get a PPP loan and an EIDL for duplicative. It's like a made-up word, but for basically the same reason, for the same dollar amount. You are allowed to have both types of loans. But if I get a $50,000 PPP loan and I use it for payroll, I can't also get an EIDL loan for $50,000 and use it for payroll. I would need to use the EIDL loan for other business expenses. Sometimes people ask, well, I have a lot of other debt, like credit card debt, high interest debt. I'd like to get an EIDL and refinance that because 3.75 over 30 years is amazing. Yeah, it is. The SBA specifically said that's not allowed. Okay. Refinancing long-term debt is not allowed. Even expansion of facilities isn't allowed. So they're not. The EIDL purpose isn't for a business to grow. I love the creativity. I love that that's where the mind of some gym owners went. I think it's awesome. But the government's intention with the loan is to help you get through this economic disaster. So it's really just going to be business expenses that's going to be used for.
Okay, a couple questions we have in the chat. What's the best loan to cover rent expenses? I would think it would be the EIDL, right?
Yeah, so the EIDL is going to be your best, although I would use 25% of the PPP loan for that as well, because you can. It's just, if you look at the math, they're basically giving you 2.5 months of income for payroll, but they only give you 2 months to spend it. So theoretically, there is going to be an amount that they give you that's not going to be forgiven unless you use it on the other 25% stuff like rent.
Okay. Dustin asked, PPP asked for the number of employees for forgiveness purposes. I put 3 employees. Do I have to use it for the same 3?
You do not have to use it for the same 3, but they are going to look at, from when you get the loan 8 weeks later, what does your staff look like? So if you started with 3, you would need at least 3. They don't have to be the same people, but you need at least 3 for them to forgive the whole amount. If it's something less than that, I think they have some sort of crazy algorithm calculation to determine what percentage of your loan would actually be forgiven. It just wouldn't be 100%.
So you need 3 employees. Like if you say you have 3, you need to end with 3 at the end of the 8 weeks.
That's right.
Okay, got it. All right, so that gives us some clarification. What about people right now? Like obviously rent probably was paid April 1st, but we don't know how long it's going to be till these loans come through. What happens for people that have rent and the loans haven't come through May 1st?
Yeah. I don't have any nice, fun, magic bullet answers for you guys on this one. So I'm looking at the PPP loan as a medium-term solution. The EIDL is a long-term solution if you need that. Short-term, if you're looking to borrow money or type of assistance that way, a lot of states have been doing these types of bridge loans, and some banks might be doing it too. A bridge loan by definition, is literally helping you get from your current state of crisis and bridging the gap to a point where you have more sustainable money. So like our state, for example, was offering some bridge loans. It wasn't a very large amount, so the money went real fast, to help some businesses. And it was a 60-day term with the idea that within 60 days, maybe they could get one of these loans and then refinance the bridge loan into it, which is generally how bridge loans work. You don't pay off the bridge loan. It gets wrapped up into the new one. If you are in a situation where you feel like you need to look at that, the only thing I would advise is stay away from anyone who's using the term hard money lending. Those are private individuals, and typically they ask for a very high interest rate. Not quite your same, like your payday service, paycheck loan type of people. So it's not going to be like a 300% type of interest rate, but you're still probably looking at something ridiculous. So what I would say, the most important thing every fitness professional can do right now is a 13-week cash flow plan. And that is literally a week-by-week basis. You're going to look and you're going to say, okay, historically, this is how much revenue I think is going to come in on this week of the month. And these are the expenses that typically come out on these days of the month. Do that with your existing scenario, with the existing expenses that you have, because as you do that, by the end, you're going to see a likely outcome of where your bank balance is going to be. If that bank balance is negative, then you go back and look at the cash flow plan that you put together and you say to yourself, okay, well, this was a productive expense before COVID-19, but now it's not. Everybody probably needs to be evaluating their expenses hardcore right now, because the things that we were doing prior with a brick and mortar location are not the things, obviously, that are going to generate revenue right now. And so there are probably some expenses we need to cut out. Anyway, so by doing a 13-week cash flow plan, you can identify where you might have some gaps. And that's kind of the advice I am giving people right now.
One of the things that we did was I went through, and I'm really bad at going through our credit cards because you go through all of our stuff for us. But I went through like line by line of our credit card reoccurring things to figure out what are we spending money on and what do we not need to be spending money on, like our Fit Aid subscription, which no one's at the gym buying Fit Aid. Utilities, like some stuff that could be turned down, turned off, so that we're not having all increased expenses. What are some things that you're like at your gym? What were things like, okay, we could get rid of this?
Music subscription was the first one that went. Cleaning person. We don't need someone to clean the space right now. No one's there. We looked at some of our software, some of the like monthly subscriptions that we have, and there were some areas there that we didn't. There was like some services we were paying for that didn't make sense while we're closed. But one thing I've learned doing this for a while for gym owners is every gym seems to be unique. And so the common thing that I tell you is if you go through that like you did and you look at every line item and say, does this expense serve me while my doors are closed? You are going to find stuff to cut. That's going to happen regardless of, for some people it might be additional software. For other people it might be a website plugin that doesn't make sense anymore. You will find something. I just don't know exactly what it is because I haven't seen a common group of expenses that fit everybody.
I think it's well worth the time figuring out going line by line. I was listening. So you wrote Profit First for Micro Gyms. Mike McCalla, who wrote Profit First, who I've been a fan of for a long time. I was listening to a podcast that he did with Donald Miller talking about like cutting up your credit cards and kind of starting over so none of these expenses continue to go. We actually did that for one of the companies. But, really either if you don't do that, then go line by line to figure out exactly what expenses you have. Dustin had one more question. Should we set up a separate account for the loan, such as the PPP loan? Should they set up a separate bank account for those? Or no, it's not needed?
It's really going to come down to each gym owner's personal like how confident they are in their ability to not spend that on other things. I personally am not setting up another loan. It's going to get used in the 8-week period, assuming I get it. I'm going to use it on payroll. And if whatever amount that doesn't get forgiven, I'm just going to pay it back because I don't want additional loan payment. It doesn't hurt to have it set up that way, but to me, it's not like one of those things where I'm strongly recommending people do that. It's really up to the gym owner. It could work if you find yourself based on your past habits that you're like, oh, I spent it on the wrong thing, but I don't think it's necessarily required.
I mean, it's a quick math calculation, right? Like if you're using the majority of it to pay for payroll, you're good, right?
Yeah.
75%. Okay. Other questions I don't see any other questions in the chat. So go ahead and put questions in the chat if you have them. John, what other kind of things can you answer for us you literally are talking to gym owners all day long right now, helping them with loans and just figuring out we're in a crazy situation. I think I was just talking to a gym owner this week and he paused every single membership when he first closed, thinking that it was just going to be 2 weeks, right? Well, now he's been closed for 4 weeks, and now he has 7 people that are paying memberships that he got back on. So 7 of his 100+ members. So gyms that are in that scenario, like, you need to get on the phone with your past people and talk about the member benefits that you're giving your clients so that you retain them, and think of awesome things to do in May so that you retain them for another membership cycle. I mean, May 1st is going to come around and many of us will have been closed for 8+ weeks at that point, or close to it in the month of May. So highly recommend that you guys are thinking about what added value you're going to give to your members, because Zoom classes are not going to cut it. Like, if they're just not going to. You need to be doing individual coaching with them. You need to get on the phone with them on a regular basis. And John, I want to talk about one other thing. Like, not many people are talking about this. We are, but you can still sell now. Like, people are still in the market of wanting help, especially with all the other big gyms that are closed, like Globo gyms. You have a unique opportunity where you can provide individual support and community support for people, right?
Yeah, so I think that the micro gym owner is the studio fitness owner. They're in such a better position to pivot and be mobile than these other larger Globo gyms. Like you were talking about that, I know a few gym owners I've spoken to in Virginia, and they've been told July 15th is the earliest that they'll. So I mean, we're talking even temporarily. This is a long time. And as you mentioned, the Zoom classes is a bridge. We have to consider our current members signed up for a brick and mortar experience, and right now they may be patient with us because they can't physically go anywhere else. But as soon as things open back up, or the longer this goes, the more they're affected, all of a sudden maybe the value that we're offering through our Zoom classes isn't going to be enough. Now, I know that not everybody wants the accountability. No, not everybody's going to want online virtual personal training, but we know that is a market that has existed before. And right now, since you probably have a few extra hours on your time, of time than you did before, I would be looking at your business plan. What worked for you well before the virus hit, and what didn't work? And if something didn't work, now's the time to create a plan for something else. Like, some of us, we didn't have any sort of online presence or service before this happened. And going through it, I'm realizing it's creating a whole new business. And we're having to do it rather quickly, but if we can successfully do that, it's actually a lot more scalable than the brick and mortar location. And, it could be a great additional revenue stream. Like, especially, talking to you, Nicole, one thing I know for sure, nutrition services, for example, is something that can still go on. In fact, I remember when I was a personal client of yours, and we met like this, virtually.
Yeah.
Because we're not in the same states, and it worked. So consider the different revenue streams that you can be adding now that not only help you bridge this moment of crisis or emergency, but can stick around and be an additional revenue stream for you long term. But you got to have a good business plan to do that. This hasn't been a popular thing to say, but I've spoken to some gym owners and I look at it. It's like, man, I want you to stay around, but you weren't successful before this happened. I can't, in good conscience, encourage you to get some loans that you're going to have to pay back, knowing that your gym before this scenario happened wasn't working out.
Yeah.
So we got to take into consideration that some of these things are loan fixes, and what you're talking about, people still need this. In fact, we know as the professional, fitness and health is more important than ever right now.
Yeah.
To boost the immune system, to keep us positive. Obviously there's a risk for a lot of depression to go on, and we know what happens when people are overly depressed. Your services, what you offer the world, combats all of that. Don't stop selling, but offer a service worth selling. The Zoom class is not something that we are marketing like, hey, join our gym because we have a Zoom class. We need to be looking at online personal training. That's a service that someone can get behind. Or nutrition coaching, all those types of things.
It's funny, someone literally emailed me right before we jumped on this live and said, hey, Jason told me that that about these awesome Zoom classes, I want to jump in. It's a member benefit. Only members can be a part of our Zoom classes that comes with accountability and support. We've paired every single person with a individual coach, which I'm sure is what you've done at your gym too. So they're getting individual follow-up to make sure that they're actually doing the workouts. If they're not doing them through Zoom, that's fine. But this is a really good opportunity to introduce some nutrition and habit-based coaching with your clients as a member benefit so you keep them around, right? Again, like we're all talking the same language here. People are not going to just continue to renew their membership because of Zoom classes. Like you have to have individualized support, and introducing nutrition could be a great way to do it. I know for us, we're going to launch a nutrition challenge in May 4th, and it's going to wrap up at the end of May, and I'm praying that we can open up in June, but who knows? And that's going to be a member retention strategy, but also a way for us to call past members and get some additional revenue stream for non-members to come in and join the nutrition challenge. We've had 5 new clients sign up over the past couple weeks that are all nutrition only clients. Like there's a huge market right now. People are stuck at home. They have no clue what to eat. They've never cooked before. They're now having to cook breakfast, lunch, and dinner for their kids, which that's a whole nother debacle, right? Like they're homeschooling. Like no one knows what they're doing right now, which is totally fine. We don't either. But they need some support, and they need someone just to talk to. Like you can provide that service for them and add additional clients, additional revenue stream right now.
Well said.
You have to. Like, we have to figure it out. And the gyms that don't pivot quickly or don't over-communicate the member benefits that you're giving your clients, they're not going to understand why they're paying you a membership if you're doing all of this free stuff for everyone in your community and not clearly defining what the members are paying for, right? So first step of all of this is 13-week cash flow. Do you have any resources for that, like to walk people through? Do you have a recording of something that we can link?
So if people go to our Incite Tax page or Profit First Micro Gym's Facebook page, either one of those, I do plan on doing one of those next week, walking through how to fill it out, what it looks like, providing like an Excel file or a Google Doc link. Yeah. Okay,
cool. So incitetax.com too. So if they go there, there is some free help on that page. I would highly recommend that you go use it. John is such an ordeal of all the knowledge regarding taxes and getting your finances in order. Profit First has been huge for us just to make sure that we're not spending money on stupid stuff and we actually are making a profit first, right? Like, do you want to talk a little bit about how you work with gyms doing Profit First stuff?
Yeah, so Profit First, the term, some people hear and they get like, oh, that's not right, because I want to serve, right? At the end of the day, it's really the idea that as the gym owner, if you're not compensating yourself fairly, you will reach burnout. And when you reach burnout, the world is a dimmer place because you are not serving the way that you wanted to, or getting the fulfillment out of it. It just happens. Like, gym owners deserve to be profitable. I get that you save lives, but you have to understand that without profit, without cash left over, you're not going to be able to sustain that for long. And so Profit First is this system where we help gym owners go through it to realize, based on the size of their gym, what does a financially fit gym look like, and we help them see what's possible, and then we work towards that, where the gym owner can pay themselves the right amount of money, where they are setting aside for their tax burden, even though none of us want to pay the government because they're just screwing up the money we give them. It's still required by law, so we just want to pay that minimum amount. But having that set aside is really helpful. And so, like for example, our gyms that have been running Profit First for more than a year, while this scenario sucks for everybody, they're at least in a position where they're not overly stressed about it because they have the cash set aside for other things, and they've been financially fit for a little bit. So it's a system worthwhile whether you're in a pandemic or normal life or even a growth scenario. The Profit First system helps gym owners keep a financially fit gym that compensates them fairly for what they're doing so they never reach burnout, so they can keep changing lives and people's family trees for as long as they want.
Well said. And I'm linking in the chat the Profit First for Micro Gyms. John wrote a book about this with Mike McCalla, so definitely check out the link in the chat so you can get some free help there. John, you're such a plethora of knowledge. I think the 13-week cash flow assessment, just to figure out where's money coming in, and if you were a gym that did freeze everyone thinking this was only going to be 2 weeks, like, get on the phone with every single person, every single past member, and tell them the offering and what you can help them do virtually. If you are still offering virtual classes right now, one thing that we did a week or two ago, the people that were attending the Zoom classes and doing the accountability calls, I just texted all of them and said, hey, I need a favor. Can you please, in 2 sentences, tell me how the accountability and support has helped you find a new normal and how much, the community of the Zoom classes is helping you. And guess what? I got 7 testimonials back right away that I used to promote to past clients who did not, want to continue with us before this all started. So use your members. Like, they're bought into your service. I think we as micro gyms have a really cool opportunity here we have relationships with every single person at our gym. Like, they know, they love, they trust you, they want to support you, so you just need to tell them how you're going to continue to help them in a virtual platform. This is new for everybody, right? John, you guys do Zoom classes. Well, you guys did classes before. Are you guys doing Zoom classes now every day at your company?
Yeah, we offer 2 live classes a day, and our coach is actually doing really good. I know I've heard of some coaches struggling with doing the movements and demonstrating it by themselves, but yeah, it's worked out good. And the workouts are still killer. Like, they're good workouts. So it's a fix for right now, but I know our gym, I want us to step up our game for sure a little bit. I'd love for us to take advantage of this opportunity because I think it can be. It's sometimes we put off things because we get so stuck with the normal and mundane. Guess what? Nothing's normal anymore. So take advantage of the opportunity, and as soon as you have something worth selling, now's the time to do it because the costs have already dropped.
Absolutely. Ryan put in a link in the chat, another resource that you guys have, the Profit First for Micro Gyms, Cash Flow Dominance During Financial Emergencies. So check out that in the chat. Thank you, Ryan, for posting that. For those people that are watching right now that have never taught a Zoom class, if you make it so that it's about the community engagement, you're going to keep the retention high for Zoom classes. We've been doing them for 4 weeks now. There's still people coming on. They're still really popular for us. There's a crash course for how to teach an engaging Zoom class on our page on the Get Free Help, so definitely check that out. We have to pivot quickly. We have to figure out how we can support our current clients, and accountability and support is really the way you're going to retain your clients. I'm 1,000% positive that we need to provide individual support with people, not just Zoom classes, if we want to keep our members, because they need help finding a new normal. Everyone's routines are completely off, and it's a great way to get some new clients. So think about your offerings, how you're going to keep people engaged and get some new people in the door, right? Not in the door, through a clickable link, I guess, right? John, anything else? Thank you for coming on and talking today about all the PPP loans. So big recap, PPP 75% has to go to payroll. It needs to be paid back within 8 weeks, which is a really key piece of the puzzle. So you want to make sure that you're doing that. Then the other loan, but we still, do you know anyone that's actually gotten either of these loans yet?
I know a person who showed me a text thread of someone he knows talking about it, but I have not firsthand met someone who's gotten one of these.
Okay, so immediate emergency cash flow dominance, check out that link with Profit First for micro gyms, but going through a 13-week plan to really figure out how much money is coming in, and if you are a gym that froze everyone's memberships, it is time for you to quickly backtrack and pivot and personally call people. I think the personal interaction with everyone is so, so important right now. Doing video calls through Zoom or FaceTime, just getting people to see your face. If they don't answer the phone, then send a video message to them just saying, hey, I'd love to jump on a call. I want to see how you're doing, see how I can help you. So please, if you're a gym owner, a nutrition coach, or business owner watching this, like, you got to pivot quickly so that you come out of this on the other side. John, anything else you want to say? Thank you for coming on today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I hope everybody listening here is fighting to stay open and not giving up. If you really think about the services that you offer the world, and you think about the problems in society, even from the standpoint of our Medicare, like our medical system, and how expensive everything is, and the drugs that people have they're trying to use to get through stuff. Your services save lives. So please keep fighting. There are so many good resources out there right now of leaders in the world stepping up, like leaders in the fitness space. If you need guidance, look for people. Like if you're looking to add a nutrition service, lean on Nicole's company, HSN. They have a great system that's easy to follow. They have proven track record. If you're looking for mentors, find a gym mentor. Like, don't give up. You deserve to be profitable, and the world needs you to be profitable.
Absolutely. And hey guys, we're all working more hours right now. Like, there's no person that's like, oh, I'm skating through this virtual platform. Like, it's tough. It's not easy, but your clients need you. Your community needs you. You have the support. Again, as John said, use the resources. John is a plethora of knowledge. John, I think you're doing something like every single day live somewhere with Zen Planner or Factory Forged, or Chris Cooper had you. I mean, Push Press. So many people are doing stuff with you. So thank you for all of your hard work. I'm positive you're working more now than you were before, getting in front of as many gym owners to help them. After this is all over, or maybe even now, go on Amazon and order Profit First for micro gyms, because promise it'll help you as well. John, thanks, you.
Nicole. Thank you.
Bye, guys.